So here's my Mark II Digi engine. You can see what I mean a little bit from the wiring point of view. Is okay, you got some HD leads and stuff there, you gotta have them, but the wiring is quite loose around the engine looking. It's not too bad. I myself have clipped in the cables around, trying to keep it neater looking. I guess not too bad. The one thing I might consider in doing my install with AT is I may actually move the brake servo. On my Mk1 Scirocco, got the brake servo sitting over here right in front of the driver's feet, or it should be. It's a bit of work in getting that there, but I'll drop in the engine first and I'll size it up and see what I can do. On my Scirocco, as an example, your Renault Clio Kangoo master cylinder, pretty much the same thing. That'd be out of a kind of like 2005, 2006 type model. There's no point getting stuff that's older than that. It's probably going to be rotten and leaking anyway. The old Bendix stuff wasn't the best. Got the back seats out at the minute. Done some track days recently. Not much point carrying them around. And one thing I did a while back was where the fuel sender and stuff goes in the car. I made myself up a swirl pot and put a standard in-tank fuel in it, fuel pump. I had to make the hole a little bigger. Seats will still fit down over it. I'll just see if I can swing the other camera around here a little bit. Got some insulators on the cap there, some plastic guys. Stop the wires shorting out against the cap. The pot itself is not really the neutral. I decided it was best to keep the wiring completely separate. So I'm running a ground wire there, and the fuel sender is the small purple wire inside the middle. So the two heavier wires are for the fuel pump and the fuel pump ground. I think that might be a little safer, just in case any shorts or wires came loose or anything. I'm not sure if that's practical, but I guess that's what I've done. It seems to be working for the last while. I made up a C-ring so that it would fit into the hole I drilled on the tank. And I've got another ringed in outside the tank. And sandwiched between the lot is a heap of screws. The screws you see on the cap actually don't go through the top ring on top of the tank, they just go into it. There's other screws in between those, so if you can imagine there's a screw like here, 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 under this cap. There's also a rubber O-ring under this cap, so I don't get a smell of fuel in here. And I've used this epoxy, which is for repairing fuel tanks. So I mixed that up, put it in the bottom of my ring, the top of the ring, bolted it all together through a big pile of holes I had to drill, and it hasn't leaked any fuel, and there's no signs of this stuff degrading or anything like that. So basically, if I take off my fuel pump, get off my clips, get off my wires, undo the ring of bolts, and this whole lot just lifts straight up, and it looks like a cylinder inside this, where the pump is insiding another little tank that's got a 15mm hole in it. So my return fuel is returning into that little tank, and the 15mm in the bottom is to allow the fuel to flow back in, so it keeps the pot full. So there is no lift pump, I guess. So this would be kind of like what you typically see run on a regular modern car, which of course will make the 1.8T swap that bit easier. I've run copper lines from the bottom of the car up into the bay, and inside in the engine bay I have my fuel filter. It's on the right hand wing. I might move that yet, but for now it's in a pretty safe place. Right, here we have my Mark IV Scrapper AUM engine.
Basically I pulled the engine apart, not completely, I didn't move the cylinder head. I basically put it up on an engine stand and split everything down off it. Changed the timing belt while I was at it. Pulled off the sump. Checked all the shells. They're all good. Torqued her all back up again. And this pipe here is one of the main offenders for the vacuum system, where this guy just splits up and basically starts leaking vacuum into it, which affects the rest of the pipes in the engine, affects the vacuum overall, I suppose. I don't know every detail about this type of stuff, but you pick it up as you go along. I've left the fuel pipes on. Just stuck a bit of hose in there to stop any crap falling in. And I'm going to machine up some little metal guys to snap back into them like Volkswagen would have had on the plastic tubings. But I will make them so that they will fit 8mm copper pipe fittings, so it'll be compression fittings, so that I can just snap these back in. And as well as that, I think it makes a nice secure connection. And if I ever had to disconnect for any reason, it's really, really easy to like push in the little blue clip and just pull them off. So it's a nice touch there, I like that. I've got some bottles here, or some hoses here for the one good thing about modern engines is the wiring. Even though there's lots more of it, as you look around the engine, there's piles of sensors and injectors and COPs, etc. But as you look at the engine, you don't really see any of it. All nice and tucked in. Everything's kept nice and tidy. Whereas if I look under the bonnet at the Mark II Digi engine that's in the Golf, there's less wiring, but it looks like there's a whole heap more. Looks like it's absolutely full of wires and it's a bit of a mess. So the manufacturers have definitely upped their game in tucking the wiring as integral parts of the engine, which makes a nice clean install. This is a plate that I have cut here that I can weld my mount onto. You can just see the shot there maybe. That's a 16 valve KR engine belt tensioner. I've got the covers on there, so it's a bit tricky to see it, I guess. You do need a spacer in behind that so that it all lines up correctly. Catch my drift there. If you just put the tensioner in on its own, it will be out of a line on the belt, and the belt will try to ride out over the side of it, which could be a bit catastrophic. I've got a ring machined up here, and the ring is to fit the engine mount. I think I might thin down the walls of this a little bit. I think I've kind of overdone it here. And some of these before, I've made these kind of mounts before, and basically if you get 3mm plate and cut it the right width and roll it around the mount and weld it with squeezing out a vise, and then what I do is, what I've done before is take them back out of the vise, cut it with an angle grinder, a 3mm disc or maybe a 1mm disc, and pull it back in, close it up basically without the mount inside, and tack it up, and then just try fit it again. And you can actually, you don't need a lathe basically is what I'm saying, I suppose. I do have access to one, so I made this guy up, and he's going to be basically welded in here at the correct angle once I've got the engine mounted in. So you've been around there somewhere. So this guard is going to have to be trimmed back a little bit more, yes, to allow that to fit. So when I'm fitting the engine, I'll take off the plastic guards and stuff off it, and then we'll trim as we go. At the minute, I've got like standard boost pipes and stuff, the clip-in fittings on the car. I'm not sure if they're going to stay or not. And the exhaust manifold, just replaced some of the bolts there. They were kind of wrecked, just basically from age and stuff. There's my engine mounts, so you can get a shot there. You can see the part number I'm using if the thing will focus in properly. So it's just a Mark 1 Golf one. Here I've got some GSP CV joints. These guys will fit onto the O2J gearbox. there is no need to hunt down 100mm cups, which are getting kind of scarce at this stage and command a bit of a premium. Those joints that I have here, the GSP ones there off a T4 Golf, I'll have some more details on those when I'm fitting. They basically bolt up onto these and allow you to put the Mk1 shafts onto them. So you don't need to change cups on the O2J gearbox for those guys. And all the length of it, all that stuff, all works out fine. So I got the ERG removed here, and I made up a little bit of plate there for myself. That just seems to be the done thing to do to these things, so I'm just running with it there, I guess. And so that's the basic package. I went through all the hosing in this, especially the vacuum pipes. Make sure that they're not leaking, and they look iffy, get rid. There may be some of this piping yet that I might remove off the engine once I'm all fitted in. But the plan is to get it in, get it running, and from there then maybe do some extra cleanup. So here I have my Mk1 Scirocco. She's 1979. It's a GLS. I had this a good few years now. I bought it in pretty good shape, but as the years went on, of course, the sills fell out of it. Bottoms of the windscreen fell out of it. The bottoms of the A-pillars fell off. The rear valance and numerous other floor parts. It's a bit dark in here at the minute now, but yeah, just for a look. So the bonnet of the Scirocco is open. Of course, the first thing you'll notice is that engine didn't come in at 1979, and you'll be right there. This is a V5. This is an AGZ engine code, I believe. So it's the 10 valve head. It fits in the car pretty good. Just about fits under the bonnet. I've made up my own mounts there to put it back in the standard spots. Nothing too crazy about fitting it in. It's kind of tight enough along the front, I guess, on the intake manifold. These engines, compared to the VR6 engines, had the variable intake manifold, which definitely increases the torque. I've used an O2A style gearbox. It's not an O2A because I guess it fits the VR5, which is a different fitting. And the whole thing fits in pretty tidy. I use a water bottle there off the Mark IV. Easy come across. The one thing we do have here is a lot of room down the back of the engine. There's a lot of room at the back of the engine here, because the engine leans to the forward. And I mentioned earlier about the brake servo. So here we have a Renault brake servo. I think Bendix is typically what they use. So it's like a kind of like 7.5 inch diameter servo. Picture isn't coming up too good there on the other phone, but you get the gist of it. So it's 4 outlet master cylinder arm. They're pretty stubby, pretty short. I try to keep the copper piping tidy. There's my fuel lines there coming in. I made some parts in the lathe that allow me to use the standard VW clip-on fuel hoses. So they're just fitting into like the copper pipes. Just trying to focus the camera here a little bit. Copper pipe type fittings, so they're flared, nothing bolted. All works pretty good. Doesn't mean I can snap the lines off if I need to. You can see the servo there, ample room around the engine. And if I look closely here, you can just about see the steering gator. And the reason I've got these aluminium piece here covering the knuckle is this is a Toyota Status EP90 steering rack out of a Galanza. It's difficult to see there. I made up some aluminium brackets that I machine up. I sold a few people have bought them off me. It works pretty good. It keeps the rack in real tight. When I met this in the Mk1 Golf, I might take a video clip of it. It does make the steering a lot easier. The pipework for the steering isn't that noticeable. You can see I've got my reservoir here. It's a Mark IV reservoir I've used. I've used the Mark IV one because it's easy to get it. It ain't ancient. You can see the return feed pipes there and return pipes. Pipes going down the engine. Let me see if I can get a shot of this fellow where he fits in. There's my power steering pump. There isn't a whole pile of clearance here, as you can see on the engine. Car is sitting a bit low. Let's kind of keep the arches full. Has to be done. And you can see my pipes here. I made some brackets here too, like these guys here. The pipes actually run. There's the fan belt here, so the pipes actually run in the middle of it. That's the way I've got it done there. It's not very obvious in the video, I guess, but I've got some nice hefty brackets there, so they ain't coming off, and those pipes won't be rubbing that belt. So, as I mentioned, to keep the arches full, you can see the kind of rear arch plates I have here. It's probably some people would argue it should be lower, but never mind people of how close this puppy is, the V5. Kind of a tall enough engine, but it is nice and short width, so from left to right, short enough. And again, if you notice, the wiring of it is very, very tidy. These guys here come back into the car. ECUs inside in the car. Here you've got the coil amplifier here. The next generation engine uses more of a COP like the 1.8Ts. So they're individual. So they ignite themselves, I guess. Whereas this guy's like an igniter for your more traditional HT lead, which I guess all the manufacturers are doing away at this stage. And nobody wants to hear that their HT leads need replacing, so as simple as they are, people would much rather replace coil packs. Makes no sense. Well, I mentioned the AGZ V5 a minute ago, and here we have another one. This is the 20 valve head. Just said I'd take a clip here outside of interest. Wiring is pretty neatly tucked. Then we have the variable intake manifold, which is pretty simple. It's just basically a tube going in here along the length of this. The tube's got holes that correspond with each inlet. So the air is routed through a slightly different path under low RPM and high RPM, which increases the torque. You can see here the engine covers removed from the engine here. And we've got the amplifiers or igniters inside in these coils in this engine. Compared to the one I have in the Scirocco, which is the older generation. It's got the amplifier or igniter sitting in the firewall, which would be very similar to what the Mark II Digi engine would have done on today's, where you'd have an amplifier for, of course you're using a distributor as well, whereas this would be driven by sensors. This engine, out of interest, just has a motor driving the throttle body. Yes, it makes the cruise control nice and easy, and of course the manufacturer, when you're leaning the throttle too hard, they don't have to open the throttle up at all. They can just leave it nice and easy, keep the old emissions down, stop you speeding up, traction control, all that stuff. Just out of interest.